Hello, it's Logan here from Dimp Digital. This time round, we're doing a review. I'm joined by Apps, and we are looking at The Walking Dead, the final season. Apps, how you doing?
Very good, thanks you.
Yep, got that perfect, nailed that.
Yep,
so
first
happy.
time.
The intro, yeah, always.
No
Yep.
cock-ups.
So, I think this feels like it's been a long time coming. The finale, if you know what I mean. It's been going on a little while from what I remember. I think The Walking Dead might have been my first introduction to Telltale, the first I knew about them. You raved about it, and 15 years later, here we are.
I mean, it was something that I definitely liked during its initial run. I think it was 2012 when it was first released, and I remember playing through it for that particular year and being really impressed with what they had done. It won. I think it was called a VGA back then for Game of the Year, which was like the equivalent to the Game Awards now. And when I first started playing it, I immediately was hooked on the series. Unfortunately, there was only one episode out, so I had to wait, like most people did. But I kind of made it my mission to inform other people and make sure as many people as I knew who I knew could just stomach it and deal with it would play it. And it was an easy sell because it was reasonably short and cheap. It wasn't like a full price game. You could get it on your smartphones, you could get it on PlayStation, Xbox, but any platform it was available on. And that was like my little mission statement from like 2012 into 2013, get as many people as I can to play it. And I think everyone who ended up playing it was pleasantly surprised at the time. So, you know, this should have been a very successful springboard for Telltale at the time. It looked like it was going to be, but seemingly behind the scenes they had some dire financial issues that were going on.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been horribly mismanaged there. That's what it seems like to me from the outside. I don't know whether that's the actual truth or not, but I think when I thought about the whole Telltale scenario, I thought, well, has anything they've done lately been that good? Like it's everyone's sort of a fan of it, but no one's sitting there necessarily going everything's amazing. I think The Walking Dead was good.
Yeah.
I think Borderlands was good.
Yeah.
The rest of it, from what I've played, I've thought it's okay, but it's never kind of blown me away.
No, I think they were fortunate to pick up so many well-loved franchises, properties. Like we had Batman, we had Game of Thrones. Something that's not as well known was The Wolf Among Us, but a lot of people
he was good, yeah.
Yeah, was a fan of that. Borderlands, another one. So they were, and obviously The Walking Dead. It was, you know, in 2012, probably at the height of its popularity, the TV show, and that rubs off when you have TV that's, you know, getting great reviews and everyone's watching it. If you've got a game that comes along in that sort of time period, it's going to rub off. Unfortunately, they did a good job with it to start off with. But yeah, I mean, Telltale have had all manner of properties to work with, and I think they've done a decent job with most of them. The one we always call back to that we didn't like was Game of Thrones.
I think that was the make or break for them.
Maybe.
I always thought that something that big, because Game of Thrones is huge, bigger than The Walking Dead probably.
Yeah.
I know they did Back to the Future, but that was quite early on.
Yeah, it's before. But you know, the Walking Dead in 2012, that really did cast them into a much larger light. They'd done Back to the Future, like you said. The formula wasn't quite there then, that they follow now. And previously to that, they'd also done Jurassic Park. So it's, again, been working with these popular franchises. But for whatever reason, Walking Dead just happened at the right time. It had the right level of interactivity. They'd got this formula around dialogue choices and giving the player agency. And in all honesty, the first season was probably my favourite game of that year. And going back to that generation, if you do it in that leap, it's up there in the top sort of three, definitely for me. It was a breath of fresh air, and it worked. That formula worked, and it gave them a platform to build out from. The trouble is, after a few years, people kind of sussed it out, and those that were after gameplay or mechanics or combat. We're just never going to be satisfied of it. So it was only ever going to play to those that were interested in a narrative. But the writing they produced in that first season, and I'd say in subsequent series of The Walking Dead after that, they've had their ups and downs, but generally been pretty good. But that first season, I think everyone took a step back and was like, "Whoa, that's really is something a little bit special."
Yeah, as I say, it's definitely what put it on my radar. I just think they, we can perhaps get into this in our closing thoughts, but I think they were possibly a victim of not evolving.
Oh yeah,
too much, and I think it's all very well churning things out, but it just never really moved on. And I think at times it become a bit samey. I think people get bored easily. And I think really when you look at them, they turned round and churned out a fair few games. Obviously, they picked up Minecraft in the end as well. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a shame what's happened, but Skybound picked them up and finished this series off for them.
Yeah, it was a real roller coaster, really, because Telltale announces that it's game over, basically, just before the second episode was due to air. So I'd played the first one, and I was pleased with that, and then this comes out of nowhere. I don't think anyone really expected it. It was all kind of like, what? Telltale? Well, how are they shutting down? And like many, I thought that was it. It was done with. The final season was destined not to be finished because they'd gone on and banged on about this is the final season. This will be Clementine's arc complete, for lack of a better word, and that'll be it. And she's become a much beloved character for those that are fans of this series, and certainly one of my favourites. And then again, almost out of nowhere, Skybound Games come to the rescue. Now, what's interesting about Skybound is that is a subsidiary entertainment platform that's owned or co-founded by Robert Kirkman, who's the author of the comic books. So rumour has it that he was actually quite impressed with what Telltale had done previously with the work and wanted to see it finished, and therefore stumped up the money and got the logistics in place. I'm not sure he was that hands-on, but gave the green light saying, I want to finish this, I don't want to leave it left undone. And Skybound come along. They took on some of the unfortunate devs that had been laid off, and they got the last two episodes finished, because episode 2 was due to be, it was already done, it was just waiting to be released. Skybound come in and got the last 2 done, took on some of the Telltale staff, so it had their touch there, and that was a real roller coaster really as a fan, because most people were like, oh, it's the final season, that's a little bit of a down really, but I was excited for it because it's the final season, and like the TV show and like other mediums and games and films, stuff just goes on too long these days. Do you know what I mean? They just try and let it run out for season after season, sequel after sequel, and you just think, Jesus, now it's poor. Like if you'd left that 5 seasons ago, that would have been a great ending, but they just don't do it. They don't give you closure, and then when it comes to getting closure, you've probably given up or you're not interested anymore. So when they announced this could be the final season for Clementine, I was like, right, that's absolutely the right decision. So I'm all hyped up for it, and then suddenly it looks like it's not going to get finished because of Telltale's closure. Skybound getting control and, for lack of a better term, save the day.
Yeah, I think it's an unusual story.
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't. You don't see it happening. Games either come or they fall. They don't tend to get rescued. So it's interesting to hear, really. And it, as I say, for a lot of the fans, it's probably, as you say, you want that closure. You just kind of, if it's me sitting there, I mean, I haven't played it, obviously. I didn't go back to the second series or anything.
Yeah.
But I guess the worry would be is that all that turmoil has an impact on what ultimately is probably the key 3 or 4 episodes, the one that you want that closure and you want it to be almost a good ending and finish the series off on a high, and you've got someone coming in ultimately who's had no real prior involvement doing that, and you sort of think, I don't know about you, but it put doubts in my mind as to what.
Of course, yeah, it absolutely did. But I think they've done the intelligent thing and got as many people as they probably could afford from the Telltale team over, so that there was that just a little bit of continuity there. we'll never know what state the episodes are in when Skybound took over. It is that some people say they were 90% done, so they just had to finish it off. QA it. Smooth over the rough edges. Story-wise, it was all in place and ready, so there was no meddling needed there. But still, I've read a few articles. They had to pump a lot of money to get this out. Right. And you think about it, someone like me, I'd already paid my 20 UK pounds or whatever it was up front on episode 1 before that. So it makes you wonder actually how much extra income would have been coming in the door to Skybound, because most people who are fans like me would have already bought the series and been playing it.
Yes.
So they'll pick up a few people that will do the entire season afterwards, but the diehards like me, they've had my money. Telltale have already flushed that down the toilet, and Alan's disappeared with it.
Yeah, I suppose it's a good point, really. I remember when I was watching the making of Back to the Future that they did.
Yeah.
They do write out and cartoon all of their story, act it out, get and everything before they put it into the graphics. So it's a good point, really. They would have had that story arc mapped out.
Yeah.
And they would have had it all outlined. As you say, it's probably just crossing the I's and dotting the T's, for want of a better term, that they had left to do. It's cheap, though. No,
it's not cheap, and it can be one of the most painful processes, because if you suddenly discover a huge bug in the game, you've got to deal with that mess. You can have it all mapped out, but if you go sit there and try and play from start to finish and there's a game-breaking bug, that can cause all sorts of mess. So I'll tip my cap to Skybound. I'm not sure how much financial outlay they had to make, or how much they're even going to make off this, if anything at all. But I think in most situations, this would have been left to die at episode 2, and then that would have been it. There'd have been no closure for people.
Absolutely.
I mean, fucking Valve won't even do Half-Life 3 and finish that off. They'll make fortunes off that, the cunts.
What are Valve doing nowadays?
Just Steam. They've got that Vive, which they had a finger in making that, and they're just not
doing any games.
Not really. Can't remember the last game they published. Probably Portal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was pretty good, but that Half-Life is not completed. That's been left cliffhangering away for years, and that is a money printer. That's just that is
guaranteed.
That's guaranteed money, and it's still not done. So I'm shocked and pleased that this was finished, because it could have easily been just taken out the back, shot in the back of the head, and that was it. But it's been resurrected, been reanimated, as they might say in the Walking Dead series, and the walkers are alive and well.
Right. Well, I've got my little review schedule in front of me, and rundown and story is what's in front of me, and I feel like this is kind of the biggest part. So I'll leave it up to you. Shall we do the mechanical parts of the game and get to the story later?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can do all the standard stuff, and because you're right to make that assumption. There's a few tweaks here and there, but generally there's the story and is what's gonna, this is gonna live and die by.
So let's kind of clump all this together then. I think this is the easiest way to doing it. These, as we said before, these Telltale ones are a real pig, because 90% of what we'd normally do a review on is almost not cared about to a certain extent.
No, didn't we? We know because of the formula.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and there's basically what you want to know is, does it work? Does it? Because some of them don't fucking work in the past.
Oh, I know. That's what I was going to point out.
They've crashed. So does it work? And have they done anything else in terms of control or mechanics, or maybe the way you progress? And they've done some small things here, which would be interesting to talk about for a little bit.
Just for clarity for the audience, you're playing this on PC, right?
Yeah, and the reason why I switched, because I originally started the Walking Dead Season 1 on Xbox 360. So you think about that for a minute. That seems like an age ago, but that's how long it was. That's how long it was when I was playing that. So that was on Xbox 360. I then transferred that to Xbox One, because your choices could be imported onto the Xbox One. So I was like, okay, that's important. And then in season perhaps 3, I think they called it A New Frontier. I then switched to PC, because by that point Telltale had got up again like a portal where you could upload your save. It didn't matter what platform it was from, you could then import that to a PC save or a PC game. So I thought, you know what, if I get it on PC, I know I'm not going to change platform, and I'll stay with it. So it was on PC for this one.
Did that hurt you at all in the brain that you were on a console and?
No, it didn't.
PC, or were you fine with that in the brain?
No, the most important thing to me was that my choices carried over, and the hassle of trying to get the save off the 360 into the Telltale account and then back down again was a real pig. And I thought, I don't want to be going through that again. Because all I thought was, because I didn't know they were going to bloody shut down or the final season was going to do now. I thought this could be going on for another decade. There's going to be another console generation coming along, and then I'll be in the same situation again. So I thought, PC, it's done, isn't it? Steam's not going anywhere. The saves will carry through if I need them to.
Right. So, I guess you're on a reasonably high-end PC, or does a jobby, doesn't it? So
yeah, I'll tell you what, it ain't going to make a difference to the way this game performs. There's a lot of overhead, put it that way, with this PC when playing a Telltale game. I'm sure I could play another game alongside it and it would still run fine.
You could have Anthem running in the background.
It wouldn't be far off. It don't take a lot of juice.
So, let's get into the old presentation and performance and whatnot. So, is it same old graphic style that hasn't moved on at all? Same old engine, and as you say, it works. No crashing.
Yeah, so no crashing or restarts required, which I definitely had a problem with one of the Batman series. That's really got on my nerves. That did. So played on PC. Visuals are very much the standard Telltale affair. Some people call them dated. Some people would, if this was an indie game, it would be called an interesting art style, but because they're not, they dug out for it. It's essentially trying to replicate the comic book looks, which they achieve to a good standard. It performs well. Presentation's the standard sort of Telltale look, and you're not going to be blown away by it. But as always, most importantly, it's serviceable, and that's what you're after.
Serviceable interaction. So on to design and progression. Is it kind of the same sort of thing where there's a bit of puzzle solving, some quick time action, and
so it follows that same sort of formula. You've obviously got the main crux of it is the dialogue choices that you make and the decisions you make during key moments. They've kept with some of the more recent revelations in Telltale at the end of the game you'll be shown your choices, your percentages, who done what, and all that good stuff. That's been there since the first series, or the first season rather. But they then include a relationship status for the characters that you meet. Yeah. So it might say, I don't know, making this up, it might say Jeff doesn't trust you, and it'll list why he doesn't trust you. And then it'll have Mandy is wary of you. So it's all things like that, and it'll give you a little rundown of each character, what they think of you, depending on the choices you made. They did make a slight adjustment in that in the areas where you wander around and that you sort of have a bit of free form, just to sort of wander around the environment. There are collectibles you can pick up. Right. So you can find, I think there's 4 or 5 collectibles per episode that you can pick up, and you grab those collectibles and Clementine will pick it up and be like, oh, that looked nice on our mantelpiece or whatever. And then when you go back to, because they'll get into the story at some point, but you're in a base or whatever, you can put those items up in your room, so it kind of decorates it. So it's not amazing, but never really had that before, so it's just an interesting little addition.
Right, okay. So it looks like they've moved it on a tad. So mechanics and control, as I say, I'm guessing it's a similar kind of thing. You run around a little bit. The camera angles get a bit irritating sometimes. That's about it, right? Well,
they did make they had a stab at real time combat this time. Right. So in previous games, everything's through quick times. Yeah. So you don't have any movement over the character. You just have to press the right buttons, make the right choice, all that good stuff. There are instances in this particular season where you'll be controlling Clementine. There might be 3 or 4 walkers wandering around, and you have to kind of figure out. I'm not saying this as God of War or anything like that, but you have to figure out how to dispatch of those. And you can walk up to them and you can kick them in the knee and stun them, so they'll fall down. and then if you want to, you can stab them in the head, get rid of them. And it's about controlling a crowd, really. You might have 3 or 4 of them, and you can't get away with just stabbing them in the head straight away, because one of them will grab you and kill you. You sometimes have an item, so you might have a bow and arrow. You can aim and shoot that. If you've got a gun, you can freely aim that and fire that. So there's a little bit of extra combat in there. Like I said, it's not God of War. It's not that level of complexity at all. It is very, very simplistic, but it's something a little bit different. So at least they had ideas to try and move the gameplay along. It's just not very advanced, that's all.
Right, yeah. I don't think you'd expect any different, really, would you?
No.
But serviceable under the current mechanics or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you'll take that then. As I say, it's good that they're doing something a little bit different, I guess, because you say otherwise it can just wear on you a little bit. Yeah,
and it's just just mixes it up a little bit. And like I said, the parts where you can freely aim and shoot are quite interesting, but they're very. It's not hard. You know, I died a few times during these moments because sometimes when you got a swarm of them, I was going for the approach of just trying to stab them and kill them outright. But you have to kind of stun some of them. Then you might want to move and lure one round, then stun and kill that one. So there's something there, but don't hang your hat on pure interaction from that sense.
Yeah, I guess if they made that too hard or whatever, you'll be sitting there going, "Fuck,
what are you doing?
What you're doing to me with these limited mechanics and this clunky gameplay?
Yeah,
I'm not here for this."
No, exactly, absolutely.
All right, well, let's not labour it too much longer then. Let's get on to this story.
The story. So this is the final season.
Yep.
I'm obviously not going to spoil anything towards any of the key parts of the story whatsoever.
Spoil it. If Adkins want to play it, it'll make me really happy.
He's King Spoiler. Well, actually, Adcock's still King Spoiler after that slip up he made last year. No one's quite got the crown off him. But you take control of Clementine, which you had done in season 2 and for parts of season 3 or the New Frontier, whatever you want to call it. You now are looking after this young kid called AJ. So AJ was another character's kid that was born during, I think, season 2 now, if memory serves me correctly. Yeah. And Clementine ends up kind of being a surrogate mother to this child. Clementine's not exactly old. She's still a teenager. Like, I don't know how old she is, they never say, but no older than 16. So yeah. You're talking 15, 14. AJ's probably around about, he feels a little bit older and a little bit more capable, so maybe like 5 or 6. So he's still, he's still a kid, but
11.
He can run around and not, you see some of those toddlers wandering. You think, well, that ain't gonna, like, you can communicate with him like you can actually tell him stuff. So it's that sort of level. So I'd say between 5 and 7, he's that sort of age. And there are you stumble across this school that was I think it was like a boarding school or a school where parents sent kids who misbehaved, and all the teachers abandoned them, and the kids now just sort of run it. So Clementine's a similar age to these characters. She might just be the same age as the oldest kid in there, but she's now around people of the same age as her, which is interesting because primarily she's always been a kid with adults. And there's a lot of parallels with the first season, because when you start the first season, you play as Lee, who looks after Clementine, who, I don't know how old she was again, maybe 3 or 4. It's a quiet thing back then, but you've kind of got this parallel where it's coming full circle. Clementine's now looking after AJ and trying to teach him right from wrong, and it's more complex now because he's never experienced anything other than this shithole. Like the second he was born,
that's where he was.
The walkers are already there. The world, he doesn't know any different. Whereas Clem at least had a few years of being a kid and then was thrust into this. And I guess what's interesting is AJ is a lot more vocal. He's a lot more of an individual, and he's capable. So he can look after himself if he needs to. He picks up on everything you say, the lessons you teach him, and will will invoke and carry out those actions if he feels like he needs to. So you've got to be careful what you say around him, what you teach him, because he will go off and act upon those, rightly or wrongly, depending on what you've said to him. And yeah, it's an interesting take on it, because you had that similar sort of situation with Lee and Clementine, but Clementine was very vulnerable. She couldn't look after herself. You were kind of protecting her and trying to teach her right from wrong, whereas AJ is, he's capable. He can look after himself. He's not, he's not going to go and slaughter a shitload of walkers or anything like that. But one or two he can take down if he needs to, and he's happy to act on his instincts and act on the lessons that you've taught him. So I think generally there was a huge amount of pressure to deliver a satisfying end to Clementine's story. Like, we haven't even seen an end state of any Walking Dead arc, really, have we? Whether it be the comics, the TV show's still fucking rattling on. So this is the first time they've tried to sort of wrap something up. And how do you do that in a world that seemingly the zombies are there to stay? And it's a really difficult thing that they've had to try and do, but they don't try and answer the world's questions. They focus primarily on the strongest parts of the story, which are the characters, Clementine, her relationship with AJ, and her relationship with these other kids. And I think overall they do a good job at this. I was pleased when I put the controller down. I thought that was from series 1 to 4 now. I've been impressed with them, and it's a fitting end, should we say, to the Clementine arc, or whatever you want to call it.
That's good to hear, and I can vouch and say that you are a tough man to please in the story front. So I think that bodes well if that's coming from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'll be interested to see whether they ever wrap up the comic series. I think that might just keep going till Kirkman snuffs it. But the TV show, at some point, they've got to call to an end, because...
Well, they should have bloody done that about 4 seasons ago.
Exactly.
I can't believe it's still getting an audience.
Well...
Those Americans must love it.
I don't know what they love it. I mean, I still watch it. I'm part of the problem, but only because I feel like I have to.
Yeah, I binned it off last season. But it's good that they've found a way of doing it. I think it's a good point you make, really, is that there is no end game. Like, it is just a continual problem that is unlikely to get solved, at least in the Walking Dead universe. There's no cure or anything. Everyone's infected. Oh, spoiler. Yeah. Like that. But if you got this far, it don't matter. That's the way I'd see it.
Yeah.
And it's good that they've managed to wrap it up. So, I mean, it's always difficult without going too far into the story, but by the sounds of it, they did a good job. Skybound / Telltale. Did you notice any difference? So when you finished off number 2 and you moved on to 3, you went hang about. Was there any difference, I guess, noticeably that had changed when it moved over to Skybound finishing it?
No, there wasn't really, and I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay, considering the turbulence that was going on. It felt very much like it was faithful to what was going on in the first 2 episodes, and you wouldn't have noticed. Had all this stuff been behind closed doors, you wouldn't have noticed. This is not like what happened with Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, where essentially Konami said, right, Kojima, you've had enough time and money, you're stopping this now and you're going to get it out in the next 3 months. And there's a very clear point in that game where they ran out of time and just
that's mental.
Bundled together an appalling... Basically, there was meant to be 3 chapters. They did 2 of them. They did 1.5, and it ends after like chapter 2 or whatever the story. But that was a clear... Like, when I finished playing that, I was so angry, because that is another series. I've been playing that since '98, and this again was the final one. It was the one that was going to bring everything full circle to like the first Metal Gear games. It was all going to show exactly what had happened to Big Bot. No, it didn't happen. I was so angry when I finished playing that game for a little while. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I mean, the game was great, but the story and the narrative...
Unsatisfying.
And there was a clear... You could almost get to the mission and say, right, this is when they didn't have time to do any more. and just had to bundle out the ending and get it sorted. So this does not happen here. So that's a credit to Skybound and the devs that come over from Telltale and who joined them.
There you go. So it's resoundingly. It sounds like positive, really, and it's good that we're here. My fear was always that I always get a feeling when we're doing these reviews whether it's coming up positive or negative, and sometimes it takes me by surprise a little bit. Often it doesn't. But on this one, I was always a little bit concerned at the situation, and that it might possibly quite be our last Telltale review that we do. I don't think we're going back and doing anything else.
No, they're all. I've played them all now.
That's it.
Maybe I'll do a retrospect of the whole series one day. I mean, I do if they release like a collection. That's what I'd like them to do. Like Skybound release a collection. I'll happily buy that and then do a big stream and do those over the coming weeks or whatever. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, Telltale is dead. This could live on. They could do a spin-off. They done a spin-off with Michonne from the comics and TV show. So Skybound might have looked at the bottom line and gone, well, we've made a little bit of money out of this. Maybe there's potential, but they have said
dangerous business picking up a bust company and carrying on doing what they were doing.
I don't expect them to be like Minecraft, any of that. I think because Skybound are so closely tied to The Walking Dead, they would only consider doing that. Or perhaps they put the devs onto a new game completely and say try something else. Or what's most likely is that once this, it was all finalised, they let them all go and they go back into the unemployment pile and off to find other jobs. But it'd be interesting to see what this gives, because Skybound haven't really developed too many games themselves. They've done like a few publishing bits and pieces. So I wonder if this gives them a taste of giving it a try. Be interesting to see.
Well, I'd quite like to see them resurrected. I'd like to be fair, what I always wanted was them to take that engine and that game to the next level, whatever that was. Yeah. As always, I'm critical without any real suggestion, but I just think it needs to be brought up a level. I think for it to attract a new audience and a new clientele. So if they could do that, and there's a new series that they can pick up, I think it would be good. But I'm surprised. One thing I'm surprised they never did was like Doctor Who. But I don't know.
I mean, there's lots of stuff they could have done and probably would have done, but Alan's management was not the cleanest, and it ended up costing them. So not ideal.
Well, I guess this kind of brings us to the end, really. I'm really hoping for a good score here. I feel like it sounds like it's a fitting send-off to Telltale. But from apps, what is the last ever, possibly, Telltale The Walking Dead, the final series, blown it season? If you want a spoiler, I did that in the original intro. It's a season.
It's called the final season. Although it was debating over what a season versus a series is, and it's not easy.
Same.
It's like this fucking midnight chat we had earlier, snarling people up.
I enjoyed that chat, but we digress. So let's stop keeping the audience on tenterhooks. What is its final score?
Final verdict score / grading for The Walking Dead, the final season, is a solid 8 out of 10 silver.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I always feel like silver for these series
it's higher.
It's high. I feel like that is where good ones should be. I think they're always going to struggle to get anything higher than that 8 out of 10. I don't know what that story's really got to be something else to get higher than that.
Yeah, I think in the past I've given, I think Tales from the Borderlands. Yeah. May have got a gold, so a 9 out of 10 back in the day. So it can happen, but most of them fall into the category of 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And some have fallen off completely and not been given, a great score at all.
Do you remember off the top of your head what you gave that Batman series? Did you
the original one I gave a bronze.
Right.
And the second one I gave a silver. So that got bumped up a little bit.
Right, okay.
I can't even bloody remember what I gave that, Minecraft season 2. It wasn't. I don't think it was. I don't think it was even a bronze. It wasn't even a 7.
This memory can't be trusted. I'm sure a 5 or a 6 was lurking.
Yeah.
Oh no,
yeah,
6
right.
in it, and then it's ungraded. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, nowadays it's out of 10, so
Right.
it would have fallen into the pot of ungraded, but now it just gets. If it gets a 6 or below, it doesn't get a little medal. Doesn't get the seal of approval. It struggles.
So, well, this does get the seal of approval. It's an emotional send-off, I think, to the wonderful Telltale.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what their legacy ends up being as more time separates from the closure in this final season that they kicked off. I get the feeling people will look back and say, "Oh, what a load of old rubbish."
Nah.
I think people will. I think they'll say. I think over time, people will be like, "Oh, just watching a story, wasn't you?" Like, I think it will become that in some people's minds, which is a bit of a shame.
Didn't we have a debate a little while ago as to whether it was actually a game or not?
Well, it's like this midnight discussion. There's facts and there's opinions. The fact is, it is a video game.
Yeah.
The opinion where you're saying it's not is incorrect.
No, I agree. I think it is. It is good to play them, and I think it'd be good to play them in chronological order of release at some point and just see how the formula developed. Because I went back not so long ago and played that Back to the Future game, the series that they released for that.
Yeah.
After I'd played The Walking Dead Season 1, Minecraft Season 1, Borderlands, Wolfie. I'd played all those games where there was the established criteria and you knew what was happening, and then you go back and it's like do some puzzle solving. You go, well, this is honestly, I had to have a guide open for some of it. You should never have to do that in a Telltale game. That some of the bits you had to do were just so alien to what I'd known. I was like, I don't know how they'd. I literally thought to myself, I'd have never got that.
No, I remember I went back and played the Back to the Future. At that stage, I remember you can make a few little dialogue choices. I think there's one where someone asks you what your name is, and you choose like a character from a film. Like I think one of them's Corleone from The Godfather or something like that. And then throughout the game, they will call you that, and it's like meant to be a little funny bit and piece. But other than that, you didn't really have much agency over what was going on. It was in my view, like a puzzle game there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but not very good. There's one bit where you're in the doc's lab, and I had to have a guide open for that. If I didn't have a guide, I'd have just been sitting there going, "What are we doing here?" Like it was just so alien. I was like, I'm expecting dialogue choices, and all of a sudden you want me to figure out this puzzle and do shit in the right order. I was like, I've never been introduced to this before. So it's interesting to see how they binned that basically and went to a more narrative-based game.
Yeah, I mean,
still using the same pissing engine, mind.
Yeah, it ain't far off, is it? Interesting. I was just looking at like a wiki page, and Clementine's got her own Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Apparently, in the first season, Clementine is a young girl between 8 and 9 years old. I don't know. That's what they're saying.
I would have said she was 6.
Yeah. I think you get muddled together, though, at that age.
Yeah, it's different.
From like 6 till 9, you're not doing it a lot, are you? You ain't.
Good point.
You ain't getting it. So I don't know how old she is in this one. Maybe 17, 16, 15. It's that sort of age.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shocked me a little bit that she was that old.
Yeah, I didn't. I always felt like she was relatively young and innocent in that.
Well, people want kids growing up too fast, don't they? So we're already getting 7 and 8 getting snatched away from them by us saying, well, they should be killing people at that age.
Well,
I don't know.
I think that's a good point for us to end it anyway. We could sit here and talk all day about Telltale, but maybe that would make a good little mini podcast for us to have a discussion with us that are a fan of it and discuss what our favourite bits are and what perhaps our least favourite bits are. But thanks for your time, Apps. Anyway, it's always good getting on here and having a chat about games.
Yep, not a problem. Cheers.
And to our audience, thanks for your time, and ta-da.